There we go. Okay, so we are going to be focusing our ecology practice, and we are going to be, like I was saying, we are going to be matching vocabulary words. And then we are going to be organizing. So remember that we said that everything in biology has to do with different ways that we organize. Hi, Elias. Nice to have you guys. And we are going to be practicing. So now you're going to have a chance to identify. You're going to have another chance to do some more matching, and you're going to apply your knowledge. And then we are going to take a look at ourselves and see how we are part of our own ecosystem and what exactly we mean by that. So, really fun fact, half of the world's species lives in tropical rainforests. Did you know that? You do now. So half of the world's species are located in the tropical rainforest, which is pretty cool. I wanted to include this quote. The first law of ecology is that everything is related to everything else. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from ecology, it's the fact that it is all interconnected and we are part of that cycle. If you do one thing to a species, there is a cascading effect to the rest of that food web and that ecosystem. So it's not just, it's easy as saying, let's take this away or let's add this in. Everything is related. Nothing is free of this, and that includes humans. So this quote is by a really famous ecologist named Barry Commoner. He went to Harvard. He was part of a lot of different organizations, and he is just really well known in the world of ecology. So the first thing I want us to do is I want us to have some practice matching the vocabulary. So what I'm going to do here is we've got like 3 slides. We were introduced to lots of vocabulary words yesterday in our whole group. So I'm going to be giving you guys the link. And for those of you who couldn't make it, the link is in the description section of the YouTube video. And we are going to actually have a chance to manipulate some of the vocabulary words to match their definitions and test what we remember. So I'm going to be giving you guys the link right now. So Elias and Spencer, I would like for you guys to click on it, and I'll know when you're here because I can see you guys in the little top corner. And I want you guys to start putting the vocabulary words next to their definitions. Okay. So we're going to go and start on slide 7. So Spencer and Elias, make sure that you are clicking on the link. And then once you do, go to slide 7. Hi, Logan. Thank you so much for joining. I just put a link to this slideshow, and we are going to start our lesson today by practicing the vocabulary and matching it to its vocabulary word. So go ahead and click on that link. And then go to slide 7. Awesome. And I see Logan is here. Great. Spencer and Elias, I'm just waiting for you guys to click on that link. Okay, no problem, Spencer. Elias, are you there? So Logan, you can start matching the vocabulary word to the definition. Okay, you can just put it right next to each other, right next to each other. And then Spencer, you just let me know once it does load, and then you can jump in. And then Elias, can you give me any sort of life, please, that you are here with us? Good. All right, Logan, let's take a look. Individual, great, a single organism of a specific species. Population, a group of organisms of the same species that live in the same area. Great. Community, all of the populations in a geographic area. And ecosystem, all of the organisms that live in a place together with their physical environment. Awesome. Great job. Good. So we are starting to get the hang of this. Go ahead and go to slide 8 and start matching that up. So make sure that you are looking and then Spencer, if it's just taking too long for you to load, you can put in the chat or say out loud what you want to match up. So we want to be on slide 8. Yeah, good job, Logan. Good. Good. Okay, that's fine, Spencer. Then why don't you go ahead in the chat? You can help direct Logan and Elias where to put the which words go with what definitions. I'm sorry about that. About it being too slow. Okay, so we've got biome, which is a group of ecosystems that share similar climates and organisms. Great. Ecology, the study of interactions among organisms and between organisms and their environment. Good. And then I'm getting a little confused. Okay, so producers or autotrophs go with use photo or chemosynthesis to make their own glucose or their own food. Good. And then what goes with bias? I think I'm getting confused with which definitions are going with consumer heterotrophs, abiotic versus biotic, and non-living components. What do we mean by that? Okay, good. Yes, Spencer. Consumers must feed. Exactly. So, okay, so consumers and heterotrophs must feed on other organisms to get nourishment. Good. What's going on with the abiotic versus biotic definitions? So what is abiotic? Good. Abiotic is non-living. Good. And biotic is living. Good. Awesome, you guys. Okay, let's go on to number 9. Slide 9. We've got a little bit more matching to go. So these have to do with the types of heterotrophs, right? Good. Close. Really, really close, right? So it's not so much, yeah, Spencer, just like what Spencer said. Exactly. Yep. Omnivores eats plants and animals. Herbivores only eat plants. Good. And then we've got carnivores that eats only animals. And then we've got decomposers that break down dead or decaying plants and animals. And then we've got scavengers that eats only dead animals and do not kill their own foods. Good. So we have a solid understanding of some of these of some of these definitions and these vocabulary words. And that is just the beginning, right? We are just starting to understand it. If you understand the vocabulary words, you're in a great place for understanding the content. So let's go ahead and practice organizing or putting these levels in order. So we know, like I said at the beginning, that biology is all about organization, right? We have different ways that we organize and categorize all of these different concepts, like when we talk about the organization of cells, when we talk about the organization of ecosystems. And then we can also break it down even further, because ecosystems are not just, it can be big, it can be small, there can be ecosystems within ecosystems. Like our bodies are an ecosystem themselves, right? In Cannon Beach on the Oregon coast, we have a ton of ecosystems that are just in small little tadpoles, right? Or in oh my gosh, I can't remember the little when the water comes in and out. I can't, right? I don't know. And how do they not get sick? It just has to do with the bacteria and their body and the way that they digest the food, right? Everything is a little different. So let's go ahead and organize our ecosystem. So we have something that's going to start from small to large. So if you guys can go to slide 11, I'd like you to put the label and the image that would go with organizing the levels, right? The levels of our ecology system, how we categorize it. So if you guys can go to slide 11, and then Spencer, if it's still having trouble load, you can just type in the chat, and Logan, you can go ahead and manipulate the boxes, and Elias, you can jump in there as well. Great. So so what do we start with? What is this first point of ecology, what we consider? Great. Individual, good. Population, awesome. Ecosystem, great. Yep. Biosphere, exactly. And finally, good. Yes, Spencer. Biosphere is all living and non-living. Great. Actually, before biosphere comes one more thing. There's something between, yeah, exactly, Spencer. Biome actually goes between ecosystem and biosphere, right? Yes, awesome job. Okay, then once you're putting those, when you're done with that, go ahead and start putting the images that go with each one as well. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. So which picture would be representative of an individual, right? Which picture is going to be representative of a population, and so forth. And yes, Spencer, you're starting to realize that it kind of starts to go from small to large. It goes from like small in size and in detail, and then as it gets bigger, we start to incorporate more information, right? So we start to see the different interactions between our different populations. So let's go ahead and put those images to match with our the images to match our organization, our vocabulary. Exactly. So which image is going to go with, we should still be on slide 11. So Logan, I see that you've gone ahead to slide 12, but let's go back to slide 11 and let's add some of those pictures to the vocab words. Right, so fish, multiple fish with a few others, good. Fish with a few others, and rocks, good. And then fish and two rock and everything, great job. Yep, that's exactly what I was looking for. Good. Yeah. And one thing that you notice about this image is that there isn't any water, right? We talk about exactly, great job, right? And so when we start to get to ecosystem, that's when we start to add things like those non-living, those abiotic factors, the water, the rocks, right? Biome now has to do with the whole thing, and then biosphere, we are considering all of it, right? So this is a representative of images. Good job, you guys. Okay, now let's go to slide 12. Put this food chain in order. So we have a couple of words and images. So what I'd like for you to do is put the images along the line and then the label along the image. So we can start labeling this, right? So go ahead and put the food chain in order. Mm-hmm. And you can decide whether you want it to go from top to bottom or bottom to top. Either way is fine as long as it's labeled appropriately. Good. Mm-hmm. All right. Grass, bug, frog, snake, bird. That is correct. Good. Okay, no problem. So let's see here. What do we have? Now we need to make sure that we're labeling all of it correctly, right? So if we are, wait, I'm a little confused about the food chain. So is the snake eating the grasshopper or is the snake eating the frog? And what's the bird eating? Good. Okay, so bird eats snake, snake eats frog, frog eats insect, insect eats grass. Okay, so we've got the primary producer with the plant. Great. So then what is the primary consumer? Suns eat, grass eats sun. That's okay. I just want to see those labels get added accurately because right now we don't have the grasshopper labeled as anything. The snake is both the primary and the tertiary consumer. We've got, and the bird is the, there we go. Yeah, so let's just get a little bit, okay, good. Okay. Okay, I see. Okay. So the grasshopper is the primary consumer. Great, because they're the first ones to eat the primary producer. Good. And then we've got the secondary consumer with the frog because it eats the grasshopper. The tertiary consumer eats the frog, makes it the third one up, and then quaternary. Great. Okay, awesome job, you guys. Exactly. And then when we are calling them primary producers, primary consumers, what do we consider that? We call those a specific type of level. Do you guys remember that word? Do you guys remember that word that goes with it? The what level? Hmm. Talks about the different levels of energy. Starts with a T. Do you guys remember? Okay. That's fine, Logan. Spencer, do you remember perchance? It's okay. Either way. They're called the trophic levels. Oh, the question was, what are these different, like the primary consumer, primary producer, tertiary consumer? Those are all called trophic levels. They're called the, right? They're talking about the levels of energy. And when we talk about the food chain, remember that the amount of energy, it only 10% of energy gets consumed on the way up through the food chain. So when we're talking, yeah, so exactly. So when we're talking about the trophic levels, we're talking about the levels of energy. Good. Well, you guys learned something new. That's what this is all about, right? That's why we come every day to learn some things, learn something new, something you knew before and now you know more of. That's great. So now we're going to start going into practice. So I have a couple of questions, a couple of things I want you guys to do. So in abiotic factors, right, just to remind you, Abiotic factors are things that are not living, right? That word a is can mean the opposite. So abiotic, non-living. Yeah, no problem. Non-living. So examples of this is pH, temperature, water, rocks, soil, weather, nutrients, minerals, basically anything that has never lived, that will never live. Then we have things like biotic factors, and that means that it is living. Examples are plants, animals, any type of organisms, and anything that was once ever alive, right? So things like a leaf that is just on the ground that's no longer attached to a tree is considered biotic, right? Anything that is, a decaying or decomposing bird is considered biotic. So anything that was once alive that is alive is going to be considered biotic and abiotic. And Logan, you are doing great. Yes. So we've got a picture here, and I did a great job just going, welcome back, Spencer. You did a great job going ahead and putting in that definition. So now I want you guys to take a look at that image. And oh my God, you guys are so funny. Yeah, so Logan, you are doing a great job giving me some more details about abiotic and biotic factors. But what I really actually want you guys to do is take a look at that image, the image of the flamingos and the environment that it's around. And I want you to identify any abiotic and and biotic factors. So Logan, yes, flamingos would be considered a biotic factor, but not flamingo. Okay, there we go. That's what I want you to be a little bit more specific. Oh my God, that's funny. Carrot costume. Guys crack me up. Okay, so rocks, water. What else do you see in this image that could be biotic and abiotic? And go ahead and make sure that you are even going above and beyond. What do you think is in that water that would be biotic? What do you think is in that water that would not be biotic? What about the background, right? What about on the soil? Ooh, I just gave one away. So yeah, good. Yeah, pebbles, good. Yeah, try to list as many as you can. Fishies, good. Worms, wormy worms, okay, good. I love it. Good. Those are not trees, they're like rocks, but you can go, what do you think would be in that soil? Do you think there would be any sort of living thing for our flamingo friends? Good. Rocks, pebbles, water. Good. What else is telling you about this picture? You can see a little bit of dirt. Good. What else in this picture can you tell? Can you tell if it's cloudy? Can you tell if it's sunny? Can you tell if it's raining? Is it right? It's sunny. Yeah. So we can talk about the weather. Sun, exactly. Sunlight itself is considered abiotic. Sunlight is used to create life, right? Autotrophs using the sun to create their own glucose, but the sun itself is not living, right? Good. Yes. Good. Yeah, good. Bird that is not flamingo. Good, good, good. Awesome. Good. So we're starting to get a little bit of the hang of it. Right. Exactly. There's probably some sort of algae in the water. Exactly. Good. All right. Let's take about 5 more seconds. Anything you want to add? Any last minute things that may be in this environment, in this picture? Cloud. Yes. Good. Air. Good. Good. Exactly. Good. Oxygen, right? Things in the air. That's great. Good job, you guys. Good. Okay, so now we're going to move into our next one. So we've got a couple slides that are really going to be working with food webs. So I want you to take a look at this food web, and I want you to identify one food chain. Remember that food webs are just made up of a bunch of food chains, right? So what is one food chain from this food web? And Spencer, you can totally type this in the chat. And then Logan, if you want to type this under, like in the text box, you can, or you can also type it in the chat, whichever one you prefer. And while you do that, I'm just going to get a glass of water really quick. Okay, good. So hawk eats rabbits. Don't stop there though, Logan, because what from the rabbit goes on, right? Cactus eats. Okay, so remember, look at the language that you used, right, Spencer? The cactus eats the cricket, which eats iguana. Now let's think about, yes, other way around. Good. So what happened with the arrows? The arrows aren't the direction in which things get eaten. The arrows are representing the direction of what? The arrows, good. Okay, so we're going up higher on the food chain, right? We also use the arrows to represent the direction of the energy, right? So when we talk about the arrows, we're not talking about the way that it's eaten. We're talking about where the energy is going. So exactly, Logan. So when we were talking about, so Spencer, let's go back to your food chain really quickly. You were talking about, really it's the disease or the bacteria are going to eat the bird when the bird dies, right? And then the bird is eating the iguana, and then the iguana is eating the crickets, and the crickets are eating the cactus, right? So that's the other way around, and the energy is going from the cactus to the cricket, and then the energy is going from the cactus to the cricket, and then to the iguana, and then to the bird, and then going back into the earth with the decomposers, right? And then Logan, couldn't any of the creatures eat? Yes, they could. And usually we're going to see that in lower level. But yes, they can eat the bacteria. Well, yeah, some of them, right? But not all. But the bacteria really does, and we've got certain types of decomposers in general that's going to work on decaying matter. Good. And then Logan, your example was the rabbit eats the hawk, eats the snake, eats the spider, eats the rat that eats the cactus. So we're looking over here. Let me see if I can follow that again. The rabbit eats the hawk. Usually it's the other way around. The rat eats the cactus. I don't see in here how the hawk eats the rabbit. So like, see here, we've got these two arrows. That means that both hawks and the rattlesnakes eat the rabbit, right? The hawk eats the rabbit. Not the rabbit eats the hawk. That would be really incredible. Oh, okay. I was just looking at your last answer. The hawk eats the rabbit. Yes. Oh, I see. Oh, you guys are such jokesters. You're too funny for me. Okay, so yes, so we've got the hawk and the rattlesnake eating the rabbit, and then the rabbit either eats the grass or the something else. Can't read what that is. Some other type of plant. Good. Yep. Great, you guys. Good. So we're starting to get into the bush. All right, that makes sense. That's fair. Okay, so we are starting to see how one chain can be made from the entire food web. Great. What about slide 17? So now, taking a look at this, which do you think is the keystone species for this biome? So remember that a keystone, Spencer, remember that we're on 17, my bad. Keystone species are the species in an environment that really holds everything together. That if you remove that species, then we start to see a really big issue when it comes to the population. So taking a look, which one do you think is the keystone species? Okay, so Logan, you said bacteria. Okay. So if there's no bacteria, what would happen? Or grass. If there's no grass, what would happen? One thing that we can do to figure out which one is the keystone species is see how it would affect the rest of it, right? Okay, so if there's no rabbit, means no hawks. Okay, tell me more about that. Why no hawks and no rabbits? Good. Rabbits eats plants. If they're right. Good. Okay, so if the rabbit doesn't have grass to eat, then it can't live, and it can't live, it can't exist. And if they don't exist, then the hawks have nothing to eat. Good. 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 Okay, so we're starting to see how a keystone species works. Okay. Remember that keystone species could be, there are various ones. Some of them they're different depending on just the different biomes and the different environments. So needless to say, that we can say that the plants are a keystone species in this biome, but that may not be the case in other biomes or in other environments, right? So really paying attention to those details, looking at not assuming that every plant is going to be the keystone species in every environment. Okay, let's take a look at slide 18. So now what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to make a prediction. What is going to happen if we have no rabbits? Right? So, okay, so go ahead. Yes, Logan. So far, if we don't have any rabbits, we're not going to have many rattlesnakes and we're not going to have many hawks. So what does that mean for the rest of the bacteria or the rest of the environment? Well, the bacteria, however, can still feed off of almost everything. So, okay, good. More grass. Good. If there's more grass, that means that there's more lizards. Good. What else? More snakes. Didn't you just said that the snakes would be gone? They would still have other things they'd be able to eat. This is true. Yeah. So, but they would still have other things to eat, right? They're not just limited to the rabbits. So maybe we don't have no rattlesnakes and no hawks like we previously thought, right? That's the thing about ecology is it is more like a puzzle. You would think that you need to really kind of look at the whole picture before you decide that there would be none of this, right? But you are correct. If there aren't rabbits, then there's not going to be as much that's going to be eating all of the plants. Yes, there's still going to be the kangaroo rat, there's still going to be the grasshoppers, but we would have more grass, right? Because or more and more bushes. You guys crack me up. And that might mean that there would be more of these things, but maybe not necessarily, we may have more rats, right? We don't have as many predators now. And so we can see that there is a cascading effect. Okay, let's try a different one. What if there were no hawks? What would happen to the environment if there were no hawks in the food web? Good. More rabbits. Good. More rats. Yeah. So if we were to have more rats, then what would that mean for the grass? If there are no hawks, we're gonna have more rabbits. We're gonna have more kangaroo rats, right? We might have more lizards. So what is that? That means that there might be less grass. Exactly. And so if we have too much of a population, now we're gonna have less. And then what eventually is gonna happen? If there's less grass, right? We're gonna get to a point where, yeah, there's going to be a point where there's a limit to the population. So we could have a lot of kangaroo rats. We could have a lot of lizards. And we might have a lot of rabbits. But then there's going to get a point where they're going to be, it's funny, very good tie-in of the Lion King. Yes, that is the big thing. They talk about ecology. They talk about the food web, about how everything needs to be in a balance. So if there are too many kangaroo rats, if there are too many rabbits, if there are too many lizards, they start to eat too much grass. And at a certain point, there's not going to be enough food for these populations. So then they're going to start to die. And we call that limit of when there are too much of a population and they run out of something, we call that the carrying capacity. That is the carrying capacity. Good, Logan. Exactly. Yep. That's the carrying capacity. And the limiting factor. Okay. Spencer, you're making some connections. Okay, good. So are you going back to the previous slide where we were talking about how if there was no rabbits, that would mean less lizards and rats? Predators now eat other things, making those connections. I love it. Good. Okay, let's see what happens. Oh, sorry. I wanted us to do something. Okay, so good. So you're starting to see that everything is interconnected. We can't have one without the other, right? We really, really can't. And so that is awesome that you guys are starting to see how everything is related. Let's try the spiders. Go ahead. If you were to get rid of the tarantulas, how would that affect the food web? Let's do it. Go for it. Okay. There would be more rats, less snakes. Okay. Good. Good. Give me a reason why. So yes, you are correct, but let's practice and just go. Less George. Yes. Less bushes. Funny. Give me more context. Why? Right? I love to push you guys. I love to have you guys be a little bit more specific in your explanation. Okay, good. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So yes, after spider, not eat rats. Okay. Okay. Good. All right. Anything else that you think would change? What would happen? So if the tarantulas went extinct, snakes would eat more rabbits because they would have, and lizards because the hawk snakes eat more of them. Okay, good, good. So we're starting to see that if we get rid of the tarantulas, the rattlesnake is going to eat more of the rabbits and the lizards. Yeah, good. And the kangaroo rat. Remember that the rattlesnake also, hawk snake. Hawk and snake, it would be very scary. Things would change drastically. Good. Good. Okay, let's take a look at this next one. Okay, so now we've been talking about how living things impact each other. But now let's take a look at this picture. How do biotic and abiotic factors work together to create sustainability? So now we want to take a look. Now we want to take a look at living things working together with non-living things. Good. Yes. Tell me specifically. Let's take a look at this picture. What are some abiotic factors that would affect biotic factors, right? Ground would be made up of rocks, right? So that would be part of the abiotic factors. So water. So yeah, let's talk about that. If water were to go away, right? If we were to have things drying up, like in a drought, what would happen to the living? So if water were to go away, what would happen to the less living, less water? Yes. So tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean less living? Be more specific, Logan. Okay, a world with only biotic factors would mean no life. Biotic factors depend on abiotic factors. Good. Eventually. Good. Spencer, in your previous comment, what do you mean by that? Be a little bit more specific. You said a world with only biotic factors would mean no life. But biotic means living things, right? So what do you mean by that? Wait, what would happen if all ground disappeared? Okay, so now we're no ground, no water, air. So I think you meant to say if there were no abiotic factors, there would be no life. How would gravity work? I don't, would we all just suffocate in space? Well, the ground, I don't know if I understand what you mean exactly. Okay, so you guys, I love that you guys are you're running away with this. Take away the ground, all of it. Okay, so if there was like no bottom, like if there was no planet. So I mean, I guess our Earth is made out of a rock, right? We know that there are other planets in our solar system that are made at more of a gaseous state that don't necessarily have a ground. So if we didn't have a ground, we wouldn't really have any way to avoid getting sucked into the center, right? Because remember that the gravity is what's pulling us towards the center of the earth. And if we didn't have some sort of barrier, we would just keep falling through. So I don't know. I guess we would all just get like, what if we pull away the earth really fast, all the animals won't get pulled with it, like a tablecloth, right? The question is like, yeah, if we pull the earth a tablecloth, but the gravity is pulling us down onto the surface of the earth. So if you take away the surface of the earth, then we would still get pulled towards the center of earth, even without the tablecloth. Because remember, if you were to quickly remove that tablecloth, there's still a surface that object is going to be stopped, right? Okay, yeah, go get the book. I love it. Is it like one of those what ifs? Like I have a book in my classroom about hypothetical, like scientific hypotheticals, and they tell you all of the hypothetical situations thought out by using science. So yeah, go ahead and grab that book. And while Logan is getting that book, Spencer, tell me a little bit more about this picture. Yeah, if the world were to suddenly stop turning, we would all hit, if we would continue to move and we would hit like solid objects like the walls. Depending on where we were, we could be thrown into anything, right? Just like if you think about a carousel, like if you're on one of those like twirly thingies at the park and you get spin, 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 and then all of a sudden you stop it, you're still going to be flung forward. It's the same thing if you're in a car. If you slam on your brakes, you're still going forward, right? And that has a lot to do with physics. We're not going to get into too much physics because if you get me started, you're not going to get me to stop. So, but Spencer, let's go ahead and focus back on this image. So if we've got some biotic factors and abiotic factors, you already talked about a really great job about the water. If the water goes away, there isn't any space for these things to live on. Yep, it's all, yep. I love that you watched a video on that. That's awesome. Yeah, that all the landmarks and big things would be torn out of the ground. It's true. It's true. Okay, so what about if, let's say, we talked about acidic rain, right? Have you ever heard of acidic rain? Acid rain? So one thing that's occurring through climate change, and this is scientifically proven at this point, it's scientifically backed, that the rain in certain areas is starting to become more acidic because of all the carcinogens and all of the methane gas and the carbon emissions that have been released into the atmosphere. And so we're starting to have a high volume of methane gas and acid in the air. And when it rains, it starts to accumulate and will fall down with the rain. And so what's starting to happen is there's these aquatic environments that are starting to change their acidity. So now we're starting to have environments where there's too much acid. So if there's too much acid, what could happen, right? Acidity is abiotic. How would that affect the biotic life? You found the answer, Logan? Yeah, we'd all go flying. Yep, that's true. So what if there was more acid in the water? How would that start to affect the biotic life? How would it all dissolve? So we would start to see some things starting to dissolve. We would start to see how things would not be able to live, right? Good. Good. Okay, what about some nutrients? What if, like, all of a sudden we lost some minerals in this picture? What would then happen? Okay, good. So we're going to move on to the next one. I see that we only have about 10. So remember, let's go back for a second. So one thing that we focus so much when we talk about plants and we talk about oh my gosh, you guys are hilarious. If we were to talk about plants and we talk about how there are aquatic plants, there are plants that grow within the water when they get the sunlight. But one thing that we don't always talk about is that plants also need nutrients. They need things like nitrogen, phosphorus, right? They need these nutrients in order to grow the best possible way that it can, right? So if we lose minerals, we're starting to lose some plants' ability to grow to its full potential. And that could also affect life. You guys are so funny. So now let's take a couple minutes and let's apply it to you. So what is part of your ecosystem? So a couple of things. I really like this image because I think that we really have we've spent so much time in this picture, right? We've spent so much time as a society thinking that humans are above or at the top of the food chain and that we're kind of like above it all. And that's something that that is part of our ego, right? But one thing that we really need to start to understand and realize is that we are not above everything else. We are not at the top of the food chain. We are a part of the ecosystem. We are not above the ecosystem. And so once we can start to, well, Logan, if we think about it, right, we are not at the top of the food chain because our number one killer is bacteria. Our number one killer are viruses. Our number one killer are actually self-made and human-made issues, like lack of water, like lack of food, getting sick, right? It's an arms race. You talk about the fact that the snakes can't have rifles. Well, the thing is, bacteria have been able to arm themselves against all of the medical advances that we have created, they're able to outrun us and become, right? I mean, talk about this pandemic, talk about this virus. It has affected our entire life. It's infected our entire global economy because of a virus. And yes, we have fast forward a vaccine that has allowed us to survive against a type of variant, but now we're starting to see that some other variant is coming up and is beating us out of this vaccine. Hand sanitizer, hand sanitizer does kill, it actually only kills 99.9% of bacteria, which is a lot, but it doesn't kill it all. As a matter of fact, we need bacteria to survive. If we were to kill all of the bacteria, we wouldn't be able to digest our food. We have bacteria in our gut that is helpful. We have bacteria living on our eyelashes that are helpful, right? So you start to see it's not so easy as saying we can kill everything, because we are a part of the ecosystem, not above. We cannot kill one thing because everything else would be affected, right? Bacteria is just as necessary as everything else. So when we're talking about ecosystem versus ecosystem, we are talking about how we are part of our society. And that means even where you live. So wherever you're living, wherever you're standing right now, you are a part of that ecosystem. So let's think about that. So this is you, right? So let's think about this. What are some abiotic factors around you? And I don't just mean you in your kitchen. I mean you in your neighborhood, right? What are some biotic factors around you? And then how do you guys all interact? So remember to be okay, so good, Logan, you're starting to talk about the different biotic and abiotic factors. Start giving me some more details. And Spencer, you too. Good, the road is abiotic, good. Birds are biotic, great, good. Okay, so we've got phones, good. So how are some of those things? And don't just think so small and within your house. Think about outside of your house as well. Okay, think about your neighborhood. Or if you want, you can start small. You can start in your home. But remember, the food that's in your refrigerator is considered biotic. And then you can take that biotic back to the food chain and where it came from and how it needed food, right? So start to think about your ecosystem. Okay, so we've got Logan, you said that your fence is biotic. Fence is abiotic. Food is biotic. Yes, remember we said that anything that was once living is considered biotic. Now, there are some foods that are so processed and so far removed from its original food source. However, okay, so food is biotic, but chain is abiotic. Correct. So food is biotic, but the food chain, the chain itself is the representation, right? Yes, a food chain is, gum is like 90%. It's actually something called xylitol that is found in plants and specific plants that creates it to be chewy. So you could make the argument that gum is biotic, but remember, we do talk about how it is so far removed from its original plant source that something that is originated from a plant source can then be so far removed it's considered biotic. Like plastic. Like plant plastic is probably closer, but still not considered biotic because it's so far removed from its original source. So there is this little bit of gray area between biotic and abiotic. Like I remember in my 6th grade class, I would ask the question, is milk biotic or abiotic? And like that launched us into this whole conversation of whether or not milk is considered biotic or not, right? Which is crazy because it's a whole wide conversation. Google it. Tell me what you find. But first, before you go and Google, tell me a little bit about your own ecosystem. Ah, you did the research, you looked it up. So let me ask you this. If milk is considered biotic, why isn't water considered biotic? Mmm. Wait, I'm confused. Water is abiotic. So milk, so wait, you're saying that milk is abiotic or biotic? Sorry, I think I misread the chat then. So Spencer, you think it's biotic. Logan says it's abiotic. Huh. And the conversation continues. Spencer, what is this? You guys have, oh my God, you guys are so funny. Okay, so for the last 5 minutes, for those of you who could not join us today, what is your ecosystem?